Hi, everybody. Welcome back to Hot Mike. I'm Bill Whittle, and we've been talking about the idea of a good guy with a gun with our friend Megan Barth. Megan's still with us for the second part. And Megan, I'm going to just take a moment because I want to set up a premise here. The left, when they try to disparage guns, the first thing they do, as we said, they go down to the shooting range and act like idiots and try to become the people that they think that we are, and that usually doesn't work. And just a moment ago, we were talking about the fact that the police are great and the police are brave, but virtually none of the time the police are there to prevent a crime, rather to investigate the crime. So the argument that you should just, why be armed? You should just call the police doesn't hold much water. But I want to talk about the gun specifically as a weapon. And here's the case I'd like to hear you talk about. For all of recorded history prior to the invention of the gun, there have been, well, in humans as in any other species, there are predators and there are prey. And for millennia, for thousands and thousands of years before history, people would be in little villages and they'd be farmers and they'd be making baskets and doing their best to lead civilized lives. And down from the hill comes all these raiders on horseback. Now, here's the point I'm trying to make. The people who did the raiding and the murdering and the looting and the pillaging and all the rest were professional warriors. That's all they knew how to do. They couldn't farm. They couldn't make anything. They're professional warriors. And they would train with swords and horses and spears and all the rest for 6, 7, 8 hours a day. If I'm going up against that guy and I'm a farmer, I might have a pitchfork and essentially no training. So we're pretty sure we know how that conflict is going to go. But with the invention of the firearm, all of a sudden the playing field got a lot more level. Can you talk to us for a moment about this idea that you don't have to be a 250-pound man who's been working out in this kind of fight? You don't have to be his physical equal, or his equal really even in terms of his prowess. The fact that you've got a firearm pretty much levels the field, doesn't it?
The firearm is the primary equalizer. Whether I am up against a opponent or a threat that might be 350 pounds. I'm a pretty tall drink of water, as you know, Bill. I'm 5'10". And work out regularly. But I still couldn't hold my own against a 350-pound man or a 350-pound woman, for that matter. And so I see my gun, my Sig Sauer, as an equalizer. It levels the playing field for me. It takes away my victimization, as well as we just witnessed a near massacre in Virginia by a radical, crazed leftist, a Democrat, who specifically sought out the Republican congressman and, as you stated earlier before, had an assassination list. I can't remember which congressman it was, but he said all we would have had were baseball bats and mitts to protect ourselves. And thank God Steve Scalise was there, Congressman Scalise, because he is the one that was assigned Capitol Police as protection. If Steve Scalise wasn't there, we would have probably been attending or viewing 20 different funerals for the 20 or so different congressmen, because all they had were bats and gloves and baseballs.
Yeah, I'm reminded of that conference in Texas a couple years ago where conservatives were getting together. It was right after another round of the Muhammad cartoons, and the convention hall you were screened for, you couldn't get in with a weapon. A lot of conservatives felt bad about that. Turns out these two Islamic murderers got out and decided they're going to gun down all of these people who are making fun of Muhammad. If it hadn't been for a police officer there just happened to be on the scene with his pistol, we'd be reading about hundreds or scores of those people dead too. Megan, it's so impressive talking to you. You not only understand this stuff from a philosophical point of view, you take it seriously. You train and you are determined. It strikes me that you're determined that your life is more valuable than some Hollywood celebrity's opinion at a cocktail party.
Well, yeah, and I'm not a Hollywood celebrity, so I can't afford the guarded gates or the armed guards or the bodyguards that they have as an entourage around them nearly 24 hours a day. And so until I reach that status, and even after I reach that status, I'll keep my Sig in my purse.
Yeah, having spoken with you and knowing you rather well, I'd actually pay you to be my security service because you know what you're doing and you're not somebody to mess around with. Megan, thank you so much for joining us today. It's a pleasure seeing you again, and it's especially good to talk to you about this issue that's getting so much attention.
Best of luck to you, Bill, and great to see you as well.
Thank you. I want to talk about another story here before we close, because, again, the question that Wayne asked in that speech is the operative question. When did guns become a bad word? When did this entire idea of self-defense, being responsible for yourself, when did this become something wrong, something that lunatics did? There was an article not too long ago. The first part appeared in Ms. Magazine. It was written by a woman named Heidi Human. She's a gun control advocate. And she wrote an article called My Month with a Gun. As I say, she wrote the first segment on Ms., and I think Ms. got enough blowback. They didn't run the rest of it. It ended up on Daily Beast, I think. But she's got a couple quotes in here and a couple things that I think are really important, because this goes to the heart of the issue for the progressives. This is what they think about gun ownership. I'm just going to take a couple of examples. Here's one of the quotes from her article. The guy who sold her the gun was named Tony. He said, Tony told me that a Glock doesn't have an external safety feature, so when I got home and opened the box and saw the magazine and the gun, I freaked. I was too scared to try and eject it, as thoughts flashed through my mind of me accidentally shooting the gun and a bullet hitting my son in the house, or rupturing the gas tank of my car, followed by an earth-shattering explosion. This was the first time my hands shook from the adrenaline surge, and the first time I questioned the wisdom of this 30-day experiment. Generally speaking, Heidi, weapons that are handled don't simply spontaneously fire, and the chance of hitting somebody is slim, and the chance of hitting somebody's gas tank and having it go up in a big fall of fire like it does on the movies is zero. Her entire point in this article is the same point that Jordan Klepper was making. They're making a straw man case. They're basically saying, see how bad this is? Let's go find out how true my theory is. So one of the points that she kept hitting was, I got a concealed carry permit, and all I had to do was give fingerprints. I didn't have any training at all. I didn't know how to operate the gun. I got a concealed carry permit. Well, my understanding is you don't have to know how to drive in order to buy a car either, but it's not a good idea to go out on the freeway without any training, Heidi. It's not a good idea to drive around in a car that you legally buy if you don't know how to drive. So this whole idea of, just anybody can go out and get a gun is false, because the people that go buy guns are the people that are interested in them, or at the very least understand the power of them to protect themselves, and it's not a subject for a column. And so they don't act like idiots and morons and say things like, I'm so worried that if I had a gun and I had a bad day, I might come home and commit suicide, or I'm worried that I might end up accidentally shooting my kids, or this one's a special one. I was worried that with a gun I might have to make a decision as to whether or not she will take a human life. Folks, I don't doubt that she believes this. And I don't doubt that she believes this from the comfort of the Pete's Coffee where she's writing the story. But what I completely doubt, and the thing I just plain don't believe, is if she was about to be murdered, or her family was about to be murdered, and she was able to freeze time in that moment and say, hey, now there's a guy there with a gun, or you've got a gun, and you can stop this. Do you want to stop it, yes or no? Then all of a sudden, these questions would be academic. And that's what the whole argument is. It's academic. It's just academic and ridiculous. So I was mentioning that the pop culture has changed the way we look at guns and ownership and all the rest of it. Let's just close with this single thought here. In the Westerns that we saw when I was a kid growing up, guns were treated with respect, used by good guys to stop bad guys, and they were not over-glorified. You shot a guy, he fell off his horse. But recently, gun violence has been fetishized, slow-motion action sequences, and we have movie stars, people like Matt Damon and Jamie Foxx and George Clooney, telling us how dangerous and bad guns are. Well, we probably wouldn't have heard of Matt Damon or Jamie Foxx or George Clooney if they hadn't been holding a gun. All of these leading men have played action heroes with guns. I don't think Matt Damon gets to complain about gun control after he's been Jason Bourne for practically a decade and has made his entire living doing this. There's Matt Damon doing his thing now, shooting a guy who's on the ground coldly and methodically. Same thing's true for Jamie Foxx, George Clooney, and all the rest. There's a simple way to do this, guys. If you really do believe so much in gun control, if you really think that the guns are the issue and not the criminals are the issue, then Matt and Jamie and all the rest of you Hollywood movie stars, Mark Ruffalo, you need to sign an oath, a public oath. And your oath is very simple. It just says, I will not appear in any movie in which a handgun is used or fired or even seen on camera. I'm just not going to do it. And you know why they won't do it? They won't do it because if they had to do that, they wouldn't have a career anymore. Storytelling is about heroism. It's about a person being willing to defend themselves and their family. It's not about groups, it's not about individuals, and it's not about safety zones or words. That's why in a James Bond movie, James Bond doesn't confront the evil villain with a sternly worded letter from the United Nations, and he doesn't drive off in a Prius at a reasonable speed. He does it because he understands, he has the moral clarity to understand that what Wayne LaPierre said and what we've been saying here at the NRA forever is true. There are bad people out there, and they used to have an unbelievable advantage over us in terms of their ability to outtrain us and outfight us and all the rest of it. But now, because of firearms, a 90-pound teacher going home in a parking lot at 2 in the morning has a chance to survive a rape murder encounter with 3 guys who are 250 pounds each. She's got a chance to survive that. And if you really get down to brass tacks, what you'll find is you will find that celebrities will say that that woman, that innocent school teacher who uses a weapon in her purse to defend her life, really has a moral obligation to die. She's morally obligated to just die and be a chalk outline and another statistic in the tragedy of gun violence. That's what they actually believe. She has a moral obligation to die. She doesn't. The celebrities don't, rather, because they've got their own security services. They don't have to worry about those kind of things. I don't think you have a moral obligation to become a chalk outline because some celebrity says that you shouldn't be able to handle a gun. And I'll tell you one other thing, Heidi. You are not an adult. You said it's easy to get a gun and exert your Second Amendment rights. It's pretty easy to write a column and exert your First Amendment rights, given by the quality of that article and how phony it was. And you said you had no training in guns. You had no training in journalism either, because your entire article was simply one big straw man argument, and it's just plain silly. And we know it. I have a feeling this issue is not going to be the last time we talk about this, but again, we do have to be aware of how these messages come into our head, and it's fun to be able to have a chance to poke these people in the eye and let you know exactly what's going on behind the scenes. We will see you tomorrow. I'm Bill Whittle. This is Hot Mike on NRATV.